Good evening, everyone. My name is Laurent R. Yergeau, Y-E-R-G-E-A-U, and I'm here to represent Turnpike Lodge, Inc. with the application for the change to the special permit. And I'd like to introduce, I'm really just going to turn it over to Chuck D'Ortenzio, who is the operations director for Key Hyundai and Genesis of Milford. So if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them, but I would just turn it over to their team.
Just if you would state your address for the record.
My home address is 45 Loomis Street, Milford, Connecticut.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Chuck D'Ortenzio. I'm the Director of Operations for the Key Automotive Group. Do you need me to spell my name or anything?
No, that's fine.
No, just your address also for the record, please.
So our working address is 566 Bridgeport Avenue, and that's here in Milford.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm the Director of Operations for the Key Auto Group. We own and operate Key Hyundai of Milford, which is at 566 Bridgeport Avenue. We're also the owners of the facility at 580 Bridgeport Avenue, which is the home of the Connecticut Tennis Center. We also own Key Chevrolet in Middletown, Key Hyundai of Manchester in Vernon. Our owner, the Merriam family, has been in the auto business in Connecticut for 3 generations, and the business is continuing to grow. We want to continue that for many years to come. Incidentally, we're also the proud sponsors of 2 Milford Little League teams, and just found out this week they're going to play each other at some point this season, so we're pretty excited about that. We have a purchase and sale agreement in place to buy the combined properties at 1040 and 1052 Bridgeport Avenue, and also the property at 990 Bridgeport Avenue. Despite the fact that these properties have remained in their current state for quite some time, we fell in love with them the first time we walked them. And despite the fact that there are no financial incentives available here, as there are in some communities, we want to build in Milford. We've been a Genesis luxury car dealer since the inception of the Korean brand in 2017, and have been searching to find a site appropriate for building a luxury retail facility. We've received approval from Genesis North America to relocate our current franchise to 1052 Bridgeport Avenue, 1052 Boston Post Road. We've met with Mayor Blake, Julie Nash, Joe Griffith, and the members of Advance Connecticut, and everyone seems to agree that this is a gateway property, and we want to build a gateway development. The Genesis luxury retail experience is to be our cornerstone. So much of what we do with regard to these dealerships is dictated by our manufacturers. This location is the 5th Genesis location approved in the entire country. Genesis is headed towards approximately 100 franchise dealers nationwide, and it is likely ours will be the only standalone Genesis store in Connecticut and one of the first to be built in New England. Luxury retail customers will be attracted from all over the state and the region right here to Milford. At this point, I'd like to turn our presentation over to our team, but I'll be available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions at this time? Yes, go ahead.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So you're proposing to put a Genesis dealership at this location?
Yes, sir.
What about a Hyundai dealership at that location?
No, we've just, if anybody hasn't noticed, we've just renovated our Hyundai dealership at its current location. We spent about $5 million over the last few years to expand both the service and the sales department, and that is being renovated to the newest design.
So that the current location at Bridgeport Avenue is going to be Hyundai only, and then this is proposal just for Genesis?
Correct, correct. There's incentives from both manufacturers for the stores to be exclusive.
Okay, so it'll be exclusive. So you're not going to sell Chevys, you're not going to sell Fords, nothing else, just Genesis?
Genesis will be the only new car franchise there, but as most new car dealers have, we do expect to sell other brand used cars, but it will be the only brand sold out of this facility.
The only new car brand sold
Correct.
at the facility. Thank
Correct.
you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Thank you. One of the questions I have in your plans, it's listed as 1052 Boston Post Road. I'm just trying to figure out where the 1040 part of the parcel is. It says 1040 to 1052,
Yep.
so just trying to figure out where the parcels are located.
I don't know the answer to that, but our site guys will.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Our civil engineer will cover that.
We can ask that when he's doing his presentation.
Okay.
Is there any other questions right now? Thank you.
I'll be here if anybody's got any other questions.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jason Edwards. I'm with J. Edwards and Associates, Engineers, Surveyors, 227 Stepney Road, Easton, Connecticut, 06612. We are the civil design engineers for this project. I'm gonna try to make this work. Okay. So this kind of gives you an area map of the overall site and the surroundings. I can't make that work. Obviously, you can see the new dealership is pointed out there. The existing site is under construction, and it's got the remains of a hotel there now, as well as the beginnings of another hotel that was approved for the site to be built back in 2019, I believe. Regarding the parcels, it doesn't show up on this sheet. The original property you can kind of see here. This is back when it was a Howard Johnson Hotel and a Friendly's restaurant back. This is from 2004. The original parcel line divided. It actually went right down the hallway between the Howard Johnsons and the Friendly's. So the Friendly's was on a separate parcel in front of the Howard Johnsons. That parcel still exists, but we are proposing to merge the parcels into one larger parcel. So 1049, I believe it is going to, or 1040 is going to be going away, and I believe it'll all be 1052. Again, this is kind of a history of the site. This was the Howard Johnson Hotel and Friendly's Restaurant. Back in 2013, it was decided to move on from that franchise, and a excavation permit was obtained, and the site was mined at that point for gravel out of the back to create a development pad. In 2019, Spath Bjorklund Associates came before you guys with an approval, or with a plan for a large retail space that was going to be a Floor & Decor, was a flooring retailer, and then also another separate standalone retail building, and a new Fairfield Inn hotel, which I think was 108 rooms. It was about 80,000 square feet of retail space and a 108-room hotel. That gained approval from both local and then also state OSTA approval. Construction began, and I believe there was health conditions with the developer or the owner at that time that caused it all to kind of fall apart. And it still is standing in that position today. Our current proposal, you can see here we are dividing this into two phases, but it's approximately an 8-acre site. About one half of the site was part of phase one, is going to be developed now. That includes it doesn't work on that screen. The entries, there's two entries there to the post road. Those were the same entries that were approved in the 2019 plan. There's no changes to that. The whole front parking area is essentially the same. The driveway comes up, and then once you get past the jog in the property to the right there, that's where the design kind of changes. The building is 24,000 square feet. We've got 266 parking spaces. That's what was, there is the existing OSTA permit that was actually for more parking than that. The access driveways, as I said, all match the original approval. The existing structures on the site, we're proposing to phase this. So if we go to the phasing plan, which is sheet 1.2 of our set, we kind of spell out the different phased items. The particular ones of concern are really the demolition of the two structures that is there. You've got the big Howard Johnson building with the cell towers on top of it, and then the foundations and the stair towers or elevator towers, whatever they are, for the Fairfield Inn that was never completed. Both of those are to be completed in phase one. The demolition of those will be completed in phase one, which would be completed prior to issuance of a CO. The idea is to get started on construction, and then those would be demolished. Really, what the only time factor on that is the cellular equipment owners on top of the buildings. They've got to move their stuff off, so we can't do it immediately. We have to wait for them to get that off. I believe they are in the works of doing that, so we anticipate that happening very soon. But the only other item in phase two that really remains is just grading and stabilizing the remainder of that western parcel. So that'll just be, for now, will just be seeded, and there's drainage that's going to be installed. All of the drainage, well, the drainage that will be required to retain the storm runoff from the undeveloped western parcel and the fully developed eastern parcel is all being installed now. So there's an oversized drainage system that's going in front that can accommodate the future development. In line with what was proposed previously, there's a chance that we may have to add more when that comes back in. But this design is what was approved by OSTA, and it's well in excess of what the city requires. Basically, we're retaining all the water on site, essentially for a 100-year storm. There's an overflow, emergency overflow, everything else pretty much stays on site. Anything that does discharge goes to the state off-ramp. That's the only outlet from the site. This is just the overall site layout plan. I've really already kind of explained that. Again, the utilities, we have a series of catch basins and piping, manholes, et cetera. They all flow to a large underground detention system directly in front of the car dealership building, the new building, and then another one out by Boston Post Road. Those both tie together and then outlet to the off-ramp to the east. We do also have 3 mechanical stormwater separators to improve water quality. All of the surface runoff will go through a stormwater quality unit before it gets to the detention systems. We have a detailed soil and erosion control plan. It includes some temporary sediment basins, soil stockpile areas, silt fences, et cetera. We have a very detailed landscape plan. The landscape architect is here. If there's questions on that, he can answer any of those. One item that I should bring up, the zoning regulations specify a 5-foot planted buffer be all the way around new buildings. We are requesting that the commission waive that for the rear of this building. That's going to be the service bay areas, and it just, in our opinion, is not a good practice to put landscape islands in the areas where you're going to have cars moving with people trying to work on them and have customers in the way. It seems like an unsafe condition, and it's also going to be tough to have landscaping back there. So we ask that you please consider that. We have a lighting plan. The lights all meet Milford standards. There's photometrics here. And then this gets us to the architectural plans. I believe I touched on everything that I wanted to. So if there's any questions for me, I'll be happy to answer them now, or I can pass off to Phil Clark from Claris, the architect, and then we can all do all questions at the end. It's up to you.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Sadi.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. The first question I had, which I asked your predecessor, the application appears to be 1040 to 1052.
Yep.
The second site plan that you had indicated 1052. I'm talking about where's the 1040/1052 come in, please?
Unfortunately, it's on sheet S.0 if you have the plans. I don't think I have that in my display because I didn't, of course, didn't think I'd need it. It's going to be absorbed by 1052.
Okay, so because you have, the application has parcel 2 and parcel 2A, and the point is that you have a phase 1,
Yeah.
which is the car dealership. Phase 2 is the demolition of, I believe, partially existing building and some other document, clearing that up. That's part of the application?
Well, all the demolition is done in phase 1.
Okay.
The only thing that's really left in phase 2, originally we wanted to phase the demolition as the second phase, but it doesn't need to be done that way, so we are going to put that in phase 1, and the only thing that's really left on phase 2 is final grading and stabilization of the western parts.
Okay, so I'm just trying to get a schedule. Phase 1, according to your application, is for the car dealership, is that correct?
It is for construction of the car dealership and demolition of the existing buildings, construction of the parking, basically Everything but the final grading and stabilization.
Okay.
Okay, I guess 1040, there's no demolition left on 1040, apparently. I wasn't sure where that parcel line is, so the demolition would only be on 1052.
Okay,
whatever
and then,
that's
if you might go to, I think it's your second drawing, the next one, please. On the bottom, that's it, that's good. On the bottom left, you have, and it's hard to see from, I can see it because we have Dropbox, we're looking at it here.
Okay.
There appears to be parking spots heading over towards the left, and you have it on Post Road. Is there another building that is located in the far bottom left there? It looks like it's a building on the documents we have. It's a little bit unclear. Looks like it might be a car.
It's a display parking area, basically. There's a detail of it in the
Yeah,
drawing.
that's correct. Okay, so that's going to be your display.
Yeah, it's for a display vehicle.
Right above that, as we look on the map, which would be north, I guess, is that just going to be graded and then landscaped area?
For now, we're just proposing to grade and seed it. It'll basically be a lawn area for now.
Okay.
Once phase 2 is complete. Phase 1 is to get demolition and the rest of the site work and construction done. Phase 2 is to finish up the final grading on that area. And the plan is to come in with another development plan for that phase down the road, but it's not done yet.
And then while I've got you up here, I've got a question probably through you to Mr. Sulkus. I looked at the plans. I really like the look of the plans, but one of the things that caught my eye was what, I think you called it a carousel, and it's going to be about 67 feet high. Could you just briefly explain what that part of the building is going to be, and then I want to make sure that it's zoning compliant?
I don't think I'm the best one to answer that.
This is Phil Clark.
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, am I in the wrong part of the presentation? Okay.
Good evening. My name is Phil Clark. I'm an architect with Claris Design Build, offices at 53 Churchill Road in Newtown, Connecticcut. To specifically answer that question, or would you want me to do
Yeah,
the
just,
present-
if you could just answer that, that'd be great, thanks.
Okay, maybe I can have that. I'm going to skip down oops. There you go. So that 67-foot structure obviously is the high one. It's a carousel, like Carvana, you might recognize. It faces Route 95, and it's almost an all-glass structure with some architectural metal panels around the perimeter. But it actually, if someone wants to look at a car or take a ride on a vehicle, it actually rotates like a Ferris wheel inside. It's really, really cool. And but it's a
Excuse me, I'm sorry. If you could speak a little bit closer to the mic, I'm having a hard time hearing you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, you're right. so it's like almost a Ferris wheel where internally where it's all enclosed, and so it's got display vehicles, 14 of them, and they just rotate in a clockwise direction. It faces I-95, so it's not on Boston Post Road, but it does face I-95.
Thank you, and again, imagine through you to Mr. Sulkus, is it zoning compliant because of the height seems awful high?
It's well below the height of the allowed in that district. I think it's like 125 or 150 feet allowed.
This question is actually to Mr. Sulkus.
Oh, I'm
through you.
sorry.
Is that-
Yeah, the carousel is 69 feet high, and you can go as high as 120 feet in that zone.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions. Thank you for the presentation.
Do you want any more questions for?
Yeah. Are there any more questions for on the site plan?
I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I just want to know where is the exit and the entrance on your plan?
Of the
Yeah, how do I get into the dealership and come out?
driving, you mean, though? Yeah, they're both entrances and exits.
Okay, so they're right at the front there.
Yeah.
There's nothing on the other side of the diner?
No, we're
No.
not proposing anything there.
Okay, all right, thanks.
You're welcome.
So phase 2 is just going to be empty right now. You're going to
Yeah.
grade it, and there are plans in the future to do something with it?
There's discussions, yes. Not too detailed at this point. but
Okay.
yes.
So then we're looking at a potential different use for that piece.
That's my understanding, but I wouldn't want to commit.
Okay, well, we can ask I'll ask it when you're back up there, that's fine. Question for you, and I don't know if you know the answer, but we do have quite a bit of concrete demo with the old Howard Johnson's and what was started on the hotel. Are you able to reclaim that and use it on site, or will that be pulled off site? If you need to get someone else up here, that's okay. Yep.
Phil Clark again with Clarish Design Build. Yes, our intentions are to recycle all the concrete and then salvage the rebar.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no other questions, then you can continue the presentation. Thank you very much.
So there have been a few questions about the rest of the site. So just to clarify, the adjacent property is 990 Boston Post Road. We have a purchase and sale agreement in place for that as well. And our intention is to continue the development right all the way across. And our thought process is, I know that one of the big concerns of this committee and of the town, as we've talked to a bunch of people already, is, what's it going to look like between the time where we've built our Genesis store and we're still working on the rest of the development. And, our intention with this piece of property is that the Genesis store is going to be a luxury retail experience. And we're going to work very, very hard to make sure that the rest of the development, the rest of the property looks appropriate for the customer and the clientele that's going to be coming to this location, so that as we then move across the rest of the property, we want to keep that same flair. So we're open to any businesses that are interested, if anybody knows somebody, but at this point, it's important that we get our development moving for Genesis and then slowly progress across the rest of it. But we're on a pretty tight timeline with Genesis, so you'll see this happen fairly quickly as we move forward.
Thank you.
I'll quickly go through the layout of the building, just so you can understand what they're proposing. It's designed actually by the architects from the Genesis manufacturers. They have very, very strict guidelines, just like any manufacturer. It is a small footprint for a car dealership. It's about 19,000 square feet. The front is a large two-story volume for the showroom. They're big into natural light. There's skylights. There's a lot of glass in the front. You'll see in a couple of slides coming up. The back has 10 bays, service bays, which again is not a larger that you'd see in a larger dealership. The side down at the bottom of the page, which is I guess south, is a drive-in for 2 cars, so that the clientele can be out of the weather when they drop off their cars for service. On the top is another bump out. To the right, the upper part of the page to the right, and that's what they call the delivery area. And so once a car is purchased, that'll be prepped and cleaned and ready to go, and that's where the client will drive their car out. Again, all enclosed. To the left of that bump out is the carousel that you questioned before, and the elevations will kind of show that a little better. And just to get your orientation, the upper page is facing I-95. The right side is facing Boston Post Road. This is just the second floor, just in the middle section of the facility, which allows height for again for the 2-story, more dramatic sales area on the right, and on the left is high bay for the service department. So these are the elevations, obviously. again, with the kind of pretty strict guidelines from the manufacturer on what they want to see, so they all, throughout the country at some point, will look similar. But I think they did a great job, and I'll tell you why, because it's not just the box. They've got a lot of bump outs. They've got a couple different textures running through it. They've done some, I thought, smart things. The rooftop units at the very top, they're all they're shielded by an enclosure, and then they've got different levels. So it's 25 feet, I believe, to the main height of the roof, the maximum height, and then of course then it bumps up to the 69 feet for the carousel. So there's just a lot of stuff going on, a lot of shadow lines. They're going with the gray tones, which is really, I think, very nice. And again, a lot of glass. So glass, and then what they call ACM panels, or architectural panels in the front, and then they start introducing a textured stucco on the sides and in the back. So it's basically 3 products, but they've done some, I think, a real nice job with it. The top picture is what's facing Boston Post Road, and then the bottom picture is what's facing I-95. The bottom picture here would be facing away from I-95, and then the top picture is just the back of the building, which is showing the service bays. But they're big on natural light and volume, and I think they did a pretty good job at, expressing that. Again, it's the second only one in the country that's this far along. So they're quickly getting out of the gate on this one. And that's really the building. But again, it's up and down. It's just not a typical box you'd see from a car dealership, and that's what I really like about it.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? All right, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Excuse me, go ahead, Ms. Olson.
One quick question. Where are the trucks going to enter and exit for delivery of the vehicles?
Car delivery? Yeah, I'll let the site engineer answer that.
For the record, Jason Edwards, J. Edwards Associates. Yeah, so the trucks could enter from either driveway, and the roadways are all designed to accommodate a WB 67 truck, I believe, so they can make their way through and all the way around the building without any trouble. There is a delivery area on the right side of the building, I believe, so I assume they'd probably unload there. But I think the car dealership would probably decide on that day where they would drop off, when they come in.
Yeah, no, I only ask because they can't unload on the street there.
No.
So I just want to make sure there's enough room for them to access make their way around.
Yeah, there definitely is, and that's a requirement of DOT as well.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay, thank you very much. Is the applicant through with his presentation?
At this time, we are through with the presentation. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So this is a public hearing. So if there is anyone in the audience who would like to speak to this issue, if you would please come to the podium, state your name and address for the board, and keep your comments to about 3 minutes. Is there anyone that would like to speak? Okay, seeing none, and without objection, we will close the public hearing. Okay.
Mr. Chair?
I'm sorry. David, would you give us your administrative summary?
Why, certainly. This is an amendment to a previous special permit which the Planning and Zoning Board approved on January 2nd, 2019. The applicant proposes to construct a new automotive dealership consisting of a new 24,600 square foot showroom and repair facility and 286 parking spaces where 99 are required. The proposed dealership is in lieu and is an approximate location of the previously approved flooring retail facility. Of the 286 spaces, 105 are tandem parking spaces as per section 5.1.1.17. The existing Howard Johnson's building would be demolished in phase 1 of the development. The new foundation and stair towers of the partially built new hotel will also be removed as part of phase 1, with final grading to be done under phase 2. The applicant is also seeking a waiver under 516.7 for compliance with the architectural standards of section 5.16 and 5.16.1. Interdepartmental reviews are still pending. The Tree Commission recommends not using hackberry trees in the parking area and replacing them with a different species such as linden or zelkovia, which will not drop berries on the parked cars. The board may condition its approval subject to compliance with the city engineer's comments when received, and we got them today, and the Tree Commission suggestions. So if the board does vote for this tonight, I would add to your motion that the applicant is required to satisfy all of the conditions in the city engineer's report to his satisfaction.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Mr.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Sulkus. We already talked about the height for the carousel. Is there any prohibition in our zoning regulations or any way of allowing said thing called a carousel?
There is no prohibition on carousels in our regulations, if that's what you're asking.
Right, and there's nothing, therefore, that would prohibit it, but we also have nothing that allows it.
It's a feature inside a building. So, you know, it's the closest thing you could equate it to would be a parking garage, and we have parking garages. And those are allowed by regulation.
Would it not be similar to maybe an elevator or an escalator? There's a constantly moving piece of machinery, whatever there's people on it or cars. I just want to make sure that we're not violating any of the rules that we have set forth that you're aware of.
Having this carousel, even if you view it as an escalator or an elevator, which we do allow, and comes under the building code and not the zoning code, there is nothing to prohibit the proposed interior carousel as you've seen this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Sulkus.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
No, this is for Mr. Sulkus. Maybe I missed this on the plans, but makes the carousel, does it also require sprinkler system as well as the entire building within it?
Those are building code issues that are not under the purview of the Planning and Zoning Board. If they're required, they will be put in per the building code.
Thank you.
Yeah, the gentleman wanted to go to the podium and say something. I just want to know what he wanted to say.
I'm sorry, I'm a little out of the formal approach and understanding of it, but I just wanted to clarify for Mr. Sadi. It doesn't move constantly. It's a parking and display piece, and the only time it would move would be if we needed to get a car that's on it down, or we needed to load cars into it. It essentially gives us the ability to park 14 cars in a 2-car parking space, and also display the cars, which is really what we want to do.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, if there are no more questions, then we can close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Mr. Quish, I'd like to make a motion, but before I do so, just an abundance of caution. I'm guessing 15 to 20 years ago, Mr. Yergo and I were scout leaders. I've not seen him for a long period of time. I do not expect and see any reason to recuse myself. So I'd like to make a motion, that being said, to approve with the following conditions and modifications the petition of Laurent Yergo Turnpike Lodge, Inc. for amendment to special permit and site plan review to construct an automotive dealership at map 77, block 832, parcels 2 and 2A, of which Turnpike Lodge, Inc. is the owner. The first is the reference to the city engineer's report dated April 18th of 2022, page 3, recommendations A through H. And the second proposed modification is that the applicant should provide a surety bond in the amount to be determined by the city based on the lowest of 3 estimates from qualified contractors as provided by the applicant for completing the site work as described in the plans and applications submitted to the Planning and Zoning Board, including but not limited to, number 1, demolition and removal of the former Howard Johnson structure. Number 2, demolition and removal of the Fairfield Inn stair towers and foundation. Number 3, the removal of all excavated materials on site. And number 4, grading and stabilization of the portion of the site listed as Phase 2.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, if you would call the roll, please, Meg.
Ms. Austin.
With the motion?
Mr. Castagnoli.
Yes.
Mr. Hirsch.
With the motion.
Mr. Cater.
With the motion.
Mr. Collegian.
With the motion.
Mr. Moore.
With the motion.
Mr. Mortimer.
With the motion.
Mr. Sadi.
With the motion.
Mr. Zaharidis.
With the motion.
And Chairman Quish.
I am also with the motion. Wish you the best of luck with your project. Thank you.
Actually, I think that's
We'll give this applicant a couple minutes to move on through, and then we will take up the next order of business. Okay, the next order of business is 1500 Windward Road, Zone WDD, petition of Stephen Bellis Esquire for a major amendment to a special permit with coastal area site plan review to construct an expansion of Caswell Cove condominiums at map 40, block 300, parcels 100 through 3A through 100 through 3D, of which Caswell Cove Condominium Association, Inc. is the owner. This was continued from April 5th, and it is to close by May 10th and vote by July 14th. The applicant has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And for the record, I'm Attorney Stephen Bellis. I represent the applicant, Primrose Development, and the owner of the property, Caswell Cove Condominium Association. I'll be very brief tonight because we did do our presentation, but just to refresh your memories, a special permit was issued and recorded on the land records for 300 units for Caswell Cove. 204 of those have been built. We are proposing 44 new units, which, doing the math, would be 248, and that's below the 300 that you already approved. I do have, and I'll pass it out just to make it clear, that we have a resolution that the Caswell Cove Committee.
Small parking, lay-down area for equipment and whatnot in the upper right-hand corner, and there is no continuation out to that right-of-way in that emergency access. So at this point in time, that entire development does not have that second way out. This development will provide the original intended second way out or the emergency access for whatever emergency vehicles need to come in. So we want to make sure that everyone understands that right now, things dead end in the upper right-hand corner. The proposal brings it straight through to the bottom of the page, out to that emergency access way, which the developer, as part of his proposal, will repair the potholes and other things that maybe make it not that passable right now, but that is part of what he plans on doing. So there is a secondary emergency access that comes to fruition as part of this application. And again, just to bring out that the The plan that we have, the landscape plan that we have, is trying to introduce vegetation, introduce topsoil. Right now, what you have is a lawn area on the existing phase. Because of the denuding of vegetation and a change to the soils profile, the only thing you're really growing there is grass. And the only way to keep that going is by fertilizers and addendums to the soil. What we're proposing is a biofiltration area that would have amendments in the sense of compost materials, leaf compost mixed with peat, mixed with sands and materials to keep it well drained. We have a series of prairie grasses and different kinds of woody vegetation that would replicate itself and not be requiring of the intervention of chemicals. It would be more of a naturalized system that we're trying to reintroduce to an area that hasn't seen it since the early 60s at best. So those are the points that I think that were maybe loose ends previously, and if you have any questions regarding those, I'd be happy to address those.
Yeah.
I just want to put this to bed. Right now, Caswell Cove, there's one way in, one way out. Is that right?
I believe so, yes.
Not what you believe so. I want to know what the facts are. Yes or no, is there a one way in, one way out right now?
Yes.
Okay. Is there also an emergency exit right now?
No.
Okay. So you're going to add 44 units, and you're still going to have one way in, one way out?
No, we're going to have the emergency access now.
So you're going to have, but that's emergencies. What about non-emergencies?
Non-emergencies, we don't have that, and there was a previous application on this site that did not go forward. So this one right now gives
I'm not asking about previous applications. I'm talking about where the state of the evidence, the state of the facts right now. You're proposing to do an emergency exit, yes or no?
Yes.
So you can come in and so you can go out, right?
You could.
It's not just one way. It's going to be, you can go in emergency or out emergency.
It's a two-way drive. It's a right-of-way. It's a right-of-way to Caswell Cove.
Okay. There's going to be an addition of 44 units, and there will be an emergency. So if there's no emergency, can it still be in use for a way out and a way in?
Not without the association building a road along the entire eastern portion out to that. Right now, there's no connectivity
Okay, so there'll be connectivity to an emergency exit.
with this plan.
Okay. Connectivity to emergency. But you can only use it for an emergency. And how often are there emergencies?
When you have one, you want one.
How many emergencies are there? It sounds like it's a road to nowhere.
No, it takes you out to Naugatuck Avenue.
Only if there's an emergency.
I'm scared. So what would prevent somebody from using this access point in a non-emergency situation? I'm getting kind of lost here.
I don't believe there's anything that would prevent them from doing it. It's a right-of-way. It's going to be a paved right-of-way.
And it'll connect to a paved street inside the complex?
Yes.
Okay.
But for an emergency only.
To answer your question, under the special permit rules, we give this proposal to your police department to determine whether it's appropriate or not as designed. And under Exhibit 9, the traffic department stated that they approved the layout based on the recommendation. It is the traffic division's decision to approve this proposal as is submitted. Likewise, under, I've given you an exhibit number 7, the fire marshal under the special permit rules has to review this as well. And under the fire marshal's report under 7, that fire marshal also did an approval, and that's in exhibit 7. I wanted to tell you that my client is willing to beef up and clean up the emergency access and repair it where it needs repair. So that's something he's willing to do.
I understand that, but
Okay.
you're adding units to a condominium but not increasing the access in and out other than an emergency.
Well, this board already approved this proposal with the way it is designed right now for 300 units. Now only 204 have been built, so it was already prior approved that way, sir. we are adding something which we think is beneficial to the community by having the emergency access. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, yeah, through you to Attorney Bellis, the adoption of this, the stipulation that was held by the unit owners, was that made part of the bylaws?
Yeah, there are bylaws, as you suggest.
I know that, but if I was going to purchase a unit and I wanted the bylaws, would I be handed this?
Yeah, that's what happens is whenever there is what we call declarance rights,
right?
That is recorded on the land records. So when
No, but what I'm asking is, if I was going to buy, I was going to buy a unit, would I be able to see this?
You would. I was going to say through a title search.
If I asked for all the bylaws,
yeah.
I
they have to give them to you, sir, by law. When your attorney, when you're buying a unit,
right,
all those documents have to be given to the buyer's attorney, and there's a 5-day grace period, obviously, to see if whether.
Okay, so I would have been able to. I
Yeah.
would have been able to see this.
You would, yes, sir.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant at this time? Okay, seeing none, and if you're through at this point, this is a public hearing, and the public is invited to speak. If you would, state your name and address for the board, and try to keep your comments to about 3 minutes. If you are agreeing with what this person in front of you said, or someone previous, you could just acknowledge that you're with those thoughts. Otherwise, please come up at your...
Thank you. My name is Jean Gray, and I actually bought my unit in December of 2017. And so this is very appropriate to your question. I had no idea that this what I would call massive sort of expansion was even in the works. Neighbors have spoken about in Article 8 of the condo declarations, which, I never even sort of read all of those declarations, that it was mentioned that there were 44 units planned to be built or something to that effect. That was in October 2010. Later on, and this is in the city clerk's office, on April 2011, that information was moved to Article 10, and it states that the development rights created under the declaration as originally recorded have expired. So this is already convoluted, if I were to recognize that this expansion was going to occur. I'm nervous, by the way. I'm not in favor of this at all, and I try and keep an open mind. As a matter of fact, my friends sitting here who are for this, and all of the detrimental consequences, in my opinion, they're numerous, as well as unforeseen consequences. So, as far as I'm concerned, I think that the proposal should be withdrawn, or at the very least reevaluated. Like, I keep hearing like 86%. 86% of who and when? And from my perspective, I'm happy about the things that were mentioned here, and I wasn't able to make the last meeting. But even getting out of the complex with all of that additional traffic, and it just everything about this expansion, I think it's the wrong thing to do for the community on many levels, and you'll hear from others too. Thank you.
Thank you. If you would just restate your address for the record.
Sure. 1435 Windward Road.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Gary Pellicetti. I live at 1425 Windward Road in Milford. Ex-President Bateman and Mr. Palisi stated that Caswell Cove was in support of this development proposal, having conducted a vote in 2007. That vote was taken more than 15 years ago, was not for this development proposal. It was for an Article 8 on the development rights and the board's declaration, as the original article had expired. It authorized the extension of development rights to add up to 44 units. A subsequent amendment would need to come in the future. No owner in 2007 voted for these plans that we see today, or in fact, any plans. They just voted to extend Article 8. In 2017, a contract was signed between the condo board and Primrose companies, but unit owners did not see the plans until they were found on the Milford website in January of this year. They have not been shared by the board to the owners to this very day, with the exception of one page with a front building view. In June of 2021, the Caswell Cove manager, Dave Phillips, stated in the minutes, though a few developers have expressed interest, but ultimately elected not to proceed. One developer indicated they would proceed with the plan should they also be able to purchase another property adjacent to the lot for further development outside the association. The developer has not yet been successful in his venture, but the board is still entertaining his offer. And still no plans were shared. In November of 2021, the then board president, Dottie Bateman, stated in a letter to unit owners, as most of you know, the association owns additional land on which a developer has been seeking permission to construct a final phase of condos. And if it proceeds, the proceeds from the land would really take the pressure off our association. However, although we have diligently continued to pursue this route, the reality is that we have been working on this issue for at least 16 years without success. This is not transparency if a contract was signed in 2017. We, the owners, have asked repeatedly to have an open discussion with the plans present and for a true vote with complete plans and transparency, but this has not happened to date. In truth, without having such a vote and having not seen the contract, it is questionable if the board ever had the authority to make such a deal. Thank you. And I'll leave my comments on the side for the board and to be ready.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. Yes, if you excuse me, would you put that on the table? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kathy Duhon, D-U-H-O-N. I live at 1414 Windward Road, Milford. At the last public hearing, the matter of triethylchlorine, TCE, a known carcinogen, and 15 other toxic metals, including lead, mercury, and thallium, was brought up. We know these toxins have all been found on Caswell Cove property. We know wells were to be dug and tested behind Building 14, which is next to the proposed development. We know this because these findings were delineated in the stipulated judgment docket #HHD-CV-11-602-6501-S, filed on August 22nd, 2019. My daughter and grandson live with me, and my grandson is medically fragile. So the idea that these toxins could be stirred up by construction is a frightening one. There are 2 other small children under age 4 living in Building 14, also, and numerous other grandchildren who fortunately visit frequently. Now that Primrose is aware of the possible presence of these toxins, what is their response? Has any testing been done? Will this new construction further dispense these toxins if they're on this site? It will endanger current owners, potential future owners, and the health of the Housatonic ecosystem. If Primrose were to finish these buildings, who will tell the new owners of the presence of these toxins? Would it be Primrose, realtors, the Caswell Cove board members, before a sale? I don't think so. And sadly, judging from comments in the last meeting, there is a negative undercurrent of them versus us. Aren't people aware that what affects one building will certainly impact us all? The traffic, the trucks, the dust, and whatever toxins that might be released and become airborne will blow towards all the buildings and the river. Again, I commend all of the HOA board members for their due diligence in trying to secure a builder for the vacant Caswell Cove property. But I also say, let's be responsible in safeguarding ourselves, our families, and the river we live on, with a proposal that suits and cares for our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jonathan Walker. I live at 221 Pope's Island Road in Caswell Cove. And I'm a professional designer, and I do have diagrams. Can I bring those up for you guys to look at? Will you be able to see when I hold mine up from here?
Sorry, we're not going to accept any paper from the public tonight. You're welcome to put it on that table right there. We have COVID protocols in place.
Yes, I just under the impression last time we did. So, do my best. All right, what I have over there are a series of 5 pages of diagrams, and what I want to address is the actual structures being put in place for this redevelopment. On the first page, I'll hold them up so you can see them. What I provided were, for context, the site plan.
We do have the ability to look at the blueprints that show where stuff is that you can ask to be seen.
Okay, well, this was just, you have this one up there?
David? No, I'm sorry, we do not. I apologize. I thought we did.
Is it something you submitted during the first public hearing?
One is.
We might have it if you submitted it.
But the others, I mean, I can address them. If you can see them, I can address from here.
Sorry. Yep, do your best to explain it. Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll do my best. Anyway, the first page just shows the site plan placed on the property on a Google map. And it shows the actual extent of the building area. It compares it to, and you'll see them later when you pick them up, diagrams showing existing buildings, and you can see right from the pictures that the proposed buildings and area is about twice the size of the normal use of that land. I think when you look at these, they're self-explanatory. You'll be able to figure those out. But the major issue tonight for me was the actual structures. And I hope you can see it from there, but I took the elevations from Primrose, and I placed an elevation of existing buildings in front of the proposed buildings. And you can see, I hope, the white silhouette right here are existing buildings. The darker detail in the back, those are proposed buildings, and you can see they tower above the existing buildings. I also provided a side elevation for building. This was building 2, this was building 6 from the side, which is this right here. And the white silhouette, again, are existing buildings, and again, it towers over it. These are, depending on which end of building 6 that is, anywhere from 39 to 45 feet above ground level. The existing buildings are about 25 feet above ground level. So there's a substantial difference, a huge difference between these proposed buildings and the actual buildings that are there right now. And one reason I bring it up this way is because I'm not referencing zoning laws or regulations. I'm addressing basically the 3 items that you list at the beginning of your website, your web page on the city's website: responsible growth and development, an attractive built environment, and then preservation of Milford's unique character and natural environments. And I think that's what's at issue here, is it's a huge departure from what's there already. The last page, which you look at, what it shows is the site plan, and on the site plan, you'll be able to see it when you look at it, and there's some notes to go with it. But I took, I think, 5 viewing points. Each one is a plus sign, and you can see the colors on there, at least from there. And it shows that from 5 important viewing points along the roads in, you get this much, about 50 to 60 feet of river view for this river development. And the rest, all you see is 40 feet of vinyl and siding and doors, and that's it. And even when you look down from the corner down through that circular emergency drive down at the end there, what you'll see is a small view, a glimpse of the river, framed by this circular piece of asphalt. And then once the plantings, and the other side here you'll see are plantings. Once those plantings are in and they mature, they will be anywhere from 5 to, well, the trees will grow at 24 inches per year. Within 3 or 4 years, all those plantings are going to block the river completely. So I guess those are my major points. It's just huge change in what's there right now, and it's not an improvement. And I think there are ways to develop there. I'm not against redeveloping or developing that section of our property. What I'm against is the way this is being carried out, just a massive dump of buildings at the south end of our property. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Corinne Booth. I live at 1428 Windward Road. I just want to reiterate, I bought my condo last...
I'm sorry, if you could try to speak just a little bit louder, we cannot hear you.
Sorry, I'm stage fright. I bought my condo last March. I was not...
I'm sorry again. If you do your name and address louder so we have that for the record. Thanks, I apologize.
No, my fault. My name is Corinne Booth. I live at 1428 Windward Road. I bought my condo last March. I was not informed of any proposed expansion, just to reiterate my neighbor's concerns. One of my concerns about the expansion is the bulkhead. I can see it clearly from my deck. The proposal begins just 15 feet off the building. The bulkhead near my building was installed approximately 50 to 60 years ago, at the same time as the bulkhead found on 990 Naugatuck, the adjacent Riverside property. Back in December of 2018, the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection said in a letter to City Planner David Salkis that the bulkhead of 990 Naugatuck was deteriorated due to a lack of maintenance, such that the area near the bulkhead is unsafe. And I think they would say the same about the bulkhead on 1500 Windward. The fact that Primrose is diverting the runoff from almost 2 acres of roofs and asphalt to a flared-in channel, basically an open-ended pipe, into the Housatonic over the property's edge, a few feet to the southern edge of the bulkhead and a few feet above the deep construction jurisdiction line, would seem to increase the erosion around and behind that bulkhead. Furthermore, in the same letter to City Planner Salkis, the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection spoke against significantly taller buildings located more closely together, built along the river, citing Milford's Plan of Conservation and Development, which recognizes the asset of shorefront property and its great value to the community. These buildings will be taller than my own deck and the deck above me. I'm right in the middle. And that's what I'll be looking at. The proposal is too dense, with buildings significantly taller than any buildings along this section of the Housatonic. That density, with its concomitant runoff, threatens an already dangerously rusted and eroded bulkhead. The height of these buildings, packed so closely together, threatens the harmony of the shorefront neighborhood. And again, already mentioned has been the concern about the increased traffic that we'll have. Again, 44 units, that's 88 cars. As far as I know, that's going to put a strain on an already busy road and access point. That road, that one access point, will be used by construction vehicles, emergency vehicles, and unit owners. It's actually privately maintained with driveway and speed bumps and garages that open directly onto the roadway. And I believe that the traffic study needs to be done just to ensure safety for everyone who lives there, as well as for people that, frankly, would be working on any proposed expansion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Joe Caruso, 1434 Windward Road. I'll just put this on the table. I had some points to talk to that were on that paper, but I'm going to kind of not go right there right now and just talk about the, some of the communications that have been to you by the people that want to go ahead with this plan, especially the roadway access in and out. Let's get it straight. There's one way in and one way out. If you want to create another way out, a second way out, you have to purchase the property next to ours to get to the railroad tracks that are there with a up and down sign, but that was for a factory that was there years ago, and you'd probably need the railroad to approve it also for traffic, plus the neighborhood where the side road goes down, and they'd all have to, I'm sure they'd have something to say about the additional traffic in and out too, because now there is nothing crossing that railroad. So that's number one. They're just hinting around it. Could be, maybe, should be, maybe we'll purchase that property down the road. In the meantime, you have an undersized driveway. How can I explain this to you? When you first go in there and you just drive in, you won't really notice anything. But when you have lived there and you see the garbage truck coming in and out, and he has to maneuver in and out nice, and if you want to get out, you have to wait. You know, we have a lot of older people there too, and God forbid anything should happen. Because what if something happens right when the garbage truck is there and he's doing his thing? You have people leaving for work. Nobody knows when these incidents will occur. And they're delayed getting to the emergency person who needs the emergency care, and something else happens. That's a lot of, that's a lot to have on your mind that we would be partially responsible for, because we're trying to expand an association that is maxed out. We're maxed out on our pool facilities. We're maxed out on our ejector pump for the sewage. The builder doesn't want to assume any cost. He wants to undersize infrastructure supports under that federal guidelines we mentioned the last time we were here. You had the other fellow talking about our green grass and how it's no good and how you have to have chemicals to keep it green. We have a beautiful expanse of green lawn that gives beautiful views of the river. And, I worked in a municipality. I know what they all do now. They all changed over to biodegradable fertilizers that you put down. So that's not even a damn issue. I'm getting tired of the things that aren't real being spoken to you like they are real. They're not real. I don't even know that there's never been an official quorum, a real quorum of people who live there now to put their input in. There's a lot of people here. They might not all be college educated, but they have expertise in experience in what they had done. I've been in the construction industry for 47 years. I hold an E1 electrical license in the state of Connecticut for the past 30 years. I recently retired, so I gave it up. I don't need it anymore. But I mean, there's people here with expertise in other areas. And I'm just going to read now, and the other thing too is we have Osprey there. They did their study of what animals are there. They did it in the winter time, from what I understand, in January. How can you do a proper study of the environmental impact on the animals that are already there? Whether it be osprey, other waterfowl. It's hard to describe. I came from Stanford. I didn't have this type where I lived. You can actually see these birds. They come in right over top of you. It's amazing. And we're gonna try to injure that for what? 44 buildings that we can't even tolerate use. And the fact of the matter is, he wants to build them, and he doesn't want to assume any responsibility. And now we'll get to the bulkhead, and then I'll get out of your hair. They had to build, and it was by the Army Corps of Engineers designed it. And we're still paying for it. Across from the swimming pool to the end of the property where the buildings have stopped, where building 14 has stopped. It costs a lot of money, and we're still paying assessments, a monthly assessment per unit until it's paid off. He wants to extend the rest of the property line and not even complete the work in the manner in which the Army Corps of Engineers approves. He just wants to leave it as it is. What kind of crap is that? And he wants us to pay for that. He wants us to pay for an ejector system if something should happen. Well, I'll tell you, the way they want to design these buildings, I don't know, did they show you any? Or maybe that goes to the engineering department. Did they show you any mechanical drawings? Any site drawings? How's it going to go underground? What's going to be, where the tie-ins are? Anything? And we're just approving this? We haven't had the opportunity as a group of homeowners to look at a plan, a finished drawing, and discuss it and come up with something that's either appropriate, or maybe sometimes the appropriate thing is to do nothing at all and just maintain what we have. If you're a homeowner, you have to do it, you have to budget, and you have to maintain. We're the same thing. I'm going to read this and I'm going to go. We basically have a builder who wants to have developer rights at what some people are telling me now is an undervalued price to begin with. Max out developments, undersized support infrastructure, roadways and water lines, overburden a maxed out ejector system without a proper study or estimate. He's disregarding a proper seawall to replace the rusting bulkhead, create driveways that are too narrow or will endanger lives, and in the same breath having the nerve to call this a responsible plan promoted by an executive board whose motive could become in question. I heard that there was the first gal that came up had some additional information about what vote should be allowed and what shouldn't be. There was something that ran out. The statute of limitations ran out on that option. All of this has been done without a quorum of people living here now that never approved this project as it sits for your approval without any adjustments in appearance or scope, which would seem to be the next logical step before you even consider this. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a statement from the board. We're our planning and zoning board, and we have purview over planning and zoning matters. And I understand there's some angst with regard to how the Condominium Association either has been communicative or not been communicating properly. That is totally outside of our jurisdiction. It may very well be true, but it may not be germane to what we actually have the ability to influence our decision, whether or not this is zoning compliant. So I understand there's a lot of energy and emotion, but I would ask that if you try to keep your comments to either agreeing with someone who spoke earlier or specifically to zoning matters as well as you can. I mean, I want the public to feel like they can be heard, but I just kind of want to let you know when you have these impassioned pleas that it may be something that really doesn't come under our jurisdiction. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Carol Lively, and I live at 963 Naugatuck Avenue, and I look out over the Housatonic River. Pardon me. And I'm speaking out against this proposal. Around me are 1- and 2-story tall houses and a few condominium complexes. This proposal for 6 buildings, 4 stories tall, squished into this area is very dense, and it's not right for this area. There's nothing else like it anywhere near me, and there's nothing like it on this section of the river, either on the Milford side or the Stratford side. And I don't see how a 4-story tall apartment building could fit into Milford's plan for conservation and development when it comes to building along a beautiful waterway. So I'm totally against a proposal that is this dense and this tall. Thank you for your help.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Greg Fetter. I'm a unit owner at Caswell Cove, 1138 Windward Road. I'm here to speak against this expansion proposal. I wanted to respond to some things the pro-development side said at the last meeting. First, though, just one thing that was just recently said here tonight that I want to point out. With regard to the emergency access road, okay, in an emergency right now, if there was an emergency and people had to evacuate, they could go out the main road. They would not have to go over train tracks. They could just keep driving down Vic Road if in that kind of emergency situation. If to go out the other side, the road they're proposing, you have to go over train tracks. So I just wanted you all to be aware of that. And currently, I don't believe there is any kind of gate at where they're suggesting. So anyway, first, you heard our past association president, Dottie Bateman, last time tell you that 80% of unit owners voted for this project. What unit owners were told they were voting for, and believed they were voting for, was to develop the acreage in a way that would respect the look and feel of the existing property. We've argued that the developer's plans absolutely do not do that, and therefore the 80% statistic they told you is bogus and misleading. As was previously stated, if unit owners had had the opportunity to see the developer's plans at the time of that vote, there's no way that development proposal would have passed. But you don't have to take our word for it that the developer's plans are completely incongruous with the buildings and layout of Caswell Cove. You don't have to take their word for it that it does. I've distributed a picture of the property that shows the Caswell Cove buildings and how they're laid out. This picture is from the homepage of the association website. You can see this picture better, as well as other pictures of the property by going to caswellcove.com. So you can compare the developer's plans to this photo and others on the site and decide for yourselves, or by all means, just stop by and drive the property. If you agree that the developer's plans do not respect the look and feel of the existing property, then you have to conclude that, 1, this is not what Caswell Cove unit owners voted for. 2, the 80% approval rate that their side cited misrepresents the vote that was taken. And 3, that our board of directors does not represent Caswell Cove unit owners. You may also recall that Dottie told you she thought our opposition to this was an example of NIMBY. Well, NIMBY typically occurs when a development is proposed that is inconsistent with the look, feel, and character of a neighborhood and could have the effect of bringing down property values. So ask yourselves, do you think the Caswell Cove unit owners would knowingly vote to develop that acreage in a high-density way that is inconsistent with the look and feel of Caswell Cove, or vote to bring inferior, lower-cost units that could diminish property values? By accusing us of NIMBY, Dottie has tacitly acknowledged what we have been saying. The developer's plans are not what unit owners voted for. They are inconsistent with and do not respect or complement the look and feel of the existing property. They will create quality of life issues for current unit owners, and they will likely bring down existing property values. There's one other fact they provided you that I want to refute. At the last meeting, someone from our side told you that the main access road through the property was 24 feet across. They told you it was 28 feet. They were wrong. The road from the proposed development to Bick Drive encompasses 2 named roads, Pope's Island Road and Windward Road. I measured the 2 roads at a few of the speed bumps. The speed bumps on these roads run directly across the road perpendicular to the curbs. A road is only as wide as its narrowest point, and I measured the first speed bump on Pope's Island Road at 24 feet even, and the speed bump in front of my unit on Windward Road at 23 feet 10 inches. For all these reasons, I urge you to vote against this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll put these over here, but if you'd prefer digital, I'd be happy to do that too.
The board will have a chance, if they wish, to look at that. Thank you.
I'm Lisa Tryon. I live at 1425 Caswell Windward Road, and I'm speaking against this. According to the minutes that are posted on your website from the last P&Z meeting, Mr. Bellis stated that the Inland Wetland Agency had granted approval for the project, but that is not correct. Connecticut defines their wetlands by soil types, and those soil types were not found by the soil scientist. Therefore, the Wetlands Agency stated they had no jurisdiction. They could neither approve nor disapprove this project. so that's incorrect. But the soil scientist did point out that during their inspection, they saw tidal wetlands. They mentioned it 3 times within the first paragraph of their report. On the original Codispati plan, and there are many of them up there, but one of the sheet SP1 was used by the soil scientist. And on there, tidal wetlands are clearly indicated. They are not indicated in later plans. Now, tidal wetlands fall under the jurisdiction of DEP, but on the CAM report, CAM application, submitted by Primrose Companies, the tidal wetlands box was not checked. It was on that same CAM application that Primrose stated on page 6 that the development shall provide the ability for a large segment of the population to have waterfront access for passive enjoyment. On page 7 of the CAM application, he states that the plan will allow pedestrian access to the water's edge, an existing bulkhead for visual benefit and fishing opportunities. Since Windward Road is actually a private driveway with limited parking due to its new SHB 6107 designation, this is not a public park. And the rusting bulkhead and eroding riverbank are no place for pedestrian access. I was just led to understand today that more visitor parking will be removed should this proposal go forward. And the emergency road that's being talked about, if you take a look at Google's maps, you will see that there is a completely overgrown trail through the 990 property. There are scattered vehicles along this trail because it's completely overgrown, and it crosses a railroad that is not a developed railroad crossing that you and I would recognize with gates and lights. I think that would need to be done if it was going to be crossed by anyone. Furthermore, Mr. Bellis stated that DEP assessed that no negative impacts were expected on local species. I'd like to see where DEP stated that. There is no paperwork on the P&Z website. Nothing has been submitted. But in fact, that statement does exist in the soil scientist report. This soil scientist was, in fact, hired by Primrose or Mr. Bellis's firm. Furthermore, the soil scientist report is based upon a visit in January 14 of this year. Wildlife, especially endangered and species of concern in Connecticut, animals like box turtles, wood turtles, bald eagles, and osprey would not be present in January. And in that report, the soil scientist does say that the proposal runs through a wildlife corridor and that the Connecticut DEP Natural Diversity Database indicates known listed species of both state and federal concern on or near this project area. I believe that the CAM application needs to be withdrawn and resubmitted with the tidal wetlands box checked and other areas corrected. I would also like to see another environmental study done by a second environmental company. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission and staff. My name is Franklin Pillacy. My address is 235 Main Street, Watertown, Connecticut. And I am a condominium attorney and a land use attorney. A condominium association, such as Caswell or any other, is required to establish a declaration and include in that declaration the status of development rights and the ability to add units to the association. Caswell has submitted through Attorney Bellis a statement of the original recreation, so to speak, of development rights. And that statement is contained in the declaration of Caswell Condominium. And it's been in that declaration since 2010 when it was amended. And that declaration states that during 2007, the unit owners voted to authorize creation of new development rights and to add up to 44 additional units. The association may exercise said development rights in the future in accordance with a subsequent amendment to this declaration. So the association has correctly reserved established and reserved the right to exercise these development rights, and they are contained in the proper place in the declaration that has been recorded on the land record since 2010. So any owner buying a unit receives a copy of this declaration. So I just wanted to point that out for your record, that it has been properly established by the association and properly recorded on the Milford land records. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you see me? Hello. Dottie Bateman, 632 Pope's Island Road. I can't respond to much of anything that anyone said because the acoustics here make it impossible. Plus, I can't hear very well. But this has been a long journey, and we've worked very hard on it. All I can say is I honestly am very much in favor of this after a lot of hard work, a lot of talking to most of my neighbors that I know. I'm very much in favor of this. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. There's a gentleman behind you.
Good evening. My name is Bill Roberts. I live at 836 Pope's Island Road. I had purchased the unit this August. I was never told about any pending growing project that was going to happen. Otherwise, I probably would not have bought it. Also, I live adjacent to the pumping station. Now, my understanding is that there's a lot of problems with it, and I can attest being woken up about a month ago. The alarm went off at 3 o'clock in the morning, and it sounded like an air raid, like it was right in my ear. And I had texted the maintenance people. They said, yes, I've got a lot of complaints. They're on the way down there. They got down there. They were working from probably 3:30 to 7 o'clock in the morning on this. So my question to the board would be, if we're having problems now, and my understanding from maintenance, this is an ongoing problem, the pump station's overloaded, so who's going to compensate for another additional 44 units? Who's going to pay for that? Who's going to constantly pay for all these upgrades on the pumping system alone, let alone second exit to get in and out? I see woods there. I see railroad tracks there. Someone's going to have to buy someone's property to get through there. I think really what the board should do is have this whole thing reviewed and really take a look at this. We're going by studies from years ago. Today is today. Let's look at what's going on now. We already have existing problems. And I'm sorry that we have to be in front of you because the board can't get itself together to have an open meeting like we're doing here with all the residents. It's just not right. So I'll leave it in your good hands to make the right decision, and I appreciate the time to be able to come up here. Thank you.
Thank you. You've already had time to speak, but I'll give you 30 seconds if you'd like. But it's really not a debate back and forth for you to respond to what someone else had said. But if you need to say something, I'll give you 30 seconds.
Everyone talks about the document from 2010, that Article 8 that says they may develop it up to 44 units. But if you go to the city clerk's office, they put in another document 6 months later that says development rights have expired. The newer document trumps the older document. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, figure I might say something. I'm McCorvey Wham. I live at 713 Pope's Island Road. I'm the lucky one to become president of the association this year. But I've also lived there for 28 years, so I was there during the 2007 vote. I was there during 2017. I remember how difficult it was to get all those votes. I was actually invited by the board. I wasn't on the board in 2017 to come and look at some of these plans, so I know, a lot of it is miscommunication, and with the pandemic, no one's really involved with these things. But the board's always tried to get people involved like me. It's always a struggle to get anybody to even, come to a board meeting, annual meetings, even people don't even read our newsletters. if people had done that, this might have not have been to this animosity type stage. I'm also, since we did once we had the board meeting in January, and people understood what had happened, and the subsequent board meetings, I do believe that there's, very few, and pretty much everyone here that opposes this is here today, but most residents do want this to go forward, and there's a lot of advantages to this happening for the association. And a lot of things like the waterway, that is our responsibility, associations, that's not anybody else's. Even if something happens, the association will have to pay for that eventually. The pumping station, that again is the association's responsibility. It was more than built for the size of the association. Even the pool, all those things were done, and we expected to build another building. In fact, the original contractor had started building that building, and it fell through. He was just trying to extend the property rights. But anyway, hopefully this can go through. But I also do feel for my neighbors that oppose this. So thank you.
Thank you. It has to stop at one point. We can't have people coming up 2 or 3 times. You've already spoken twice, once at the last meeting and once tonight. I really don't want to be in a position to not let the public feel like they're heard, but I don't really like to be in a position to have the board being taken advantage of, but I'll give you 30 seconds.
I just had 2 questions. We're adding 88 more cars probably down there. Have you folks driven down at that corner? I'm not even talking about in the development. The corner of Oronoke and Big Road. You drive either of those roads and they're disasters. You have to drive like a crazy person on the wrong side of the road. That was one point. The other one is, my question is, are we creating a new wetlands that might create another problem in the future with this biodiversity / marsh in the back there? So are we creating a new problem that doesn't exist?
Okay, thank you. David, if you would give any consideration to anything you'd like to speak, we'd love to hear any clarifications or anything you'd like to share with us.
I can read to you my administrative summary again, I can read my administrative summary again if you would like, but basically, you are the Planning and Zoning Board. You were given a legal application from an entity that is the Condominium Association. Most of what we heard during these proceedings are internal issues between members of the association and have no bearing on the application that was submitted to you. So I can read to you my summary. This, under our planning and zoning regulations, is zoning compliant. I'm sympathetic to everything, and I'm sure all of you are sympathetic to everything we've heard. This board previously on multiple occasions has approved significantly higher numbers of units on this site. So from multiple standpoints, having just 44 units being developed here where there could have been many more units at a much higher density, I think is a win for, the people in the association who want to obviously have this development. Also, the issue with the emergency access, it's not an issue. It's not a planning and zoning issue. All of our public safety agencies have looked at this and they have approved it. Having 44 more units there is not a detriment to the security or the safety of the people who live there. Again, hundreds of more units were approved at this location at one time. And if you give me 2 seconds, I can pull up my administrative summary if you would like me to.
Sure, and if you would at one point address the CAM application, just to ensure that it was proper in all respects. Thank you.
The applicant is proposing to construct the final phase of Caswell Cove. The last approved site plan amended 6/20/1989 allowed for 264 units in the final phase. The applicant is proposing a reduced final phase count of 44 units with an additional 107 parking spaces in compliance with our regulations. The final unit count upon completion of the final phase will be 248 units for the entirety of Caswell Cove. Currently, there are 204 existing units plus the 44 new units. There is no expected adverse impact on coastal area resources. Erosion along the banks of the Housatonic River was noted by the city engineer, and it is suggested that it should be addressed. With these conditions, the application is determined to be substantially compliant with our zoning regulations. The CAM report was submitted, and I can pull that up. I can pull up, let me get the city engineer's report. But again, the biggest issue when we talk about a coastal area site plan review or a CAM application is what's the adverse impact on coastal resources? This property, we heard about its history and its use, which was industrial. The coast itself is a retaining wall, a sea wall, whatever you want to call it, and that the section, as we've heard from various people, along this particular area of development is deteriorated and it's eroding. Our regulations don't really speak to that. That's actually a maintenance issue for the association. So however they want to work it out amongst themselves to fix that erosion, there's nothing in our regulations that says they have to do that now. Obviously, at some point, it would probably behoove them to do something, but again, that's not part of our regulations. So I don't know what else. Is there anything else you would like?
Great, thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Sadi.
Thank you. This is a question through the chair to Mr. Sulkus. I've reviewed your administrative summary for a number of times, and what you indicated to us was the last approved site plan amended June 20th of 1989 allowed for 264 units in the final phase.
There may have been another visit to the Planning and Zoning Board around 2007 where they came in to reduce the number of again. In the end, it doesn't make a difference because they had all these previous approvals, and the last change, and it actually doesn't matter that the board even specified in the last change, they have to come back to you. Anytime someone goes and wants to make a change to their special permit, they're going to pay a visit to the board. So,
right, and really what I'm getting at is I'm going to the record that was provided by Attorney Bellis, pages 136 to 137 or 138. It's a letter dated February 26, 1992 from your predecessor, Mr. Wade Pierce. Appears in 1987, this board approved 300 units, and there was some changes to slips and garage, but then it said in August of 1990, there's only 168 units that could be left. So I'm just suggesting that there was 300 units that were approved, and I imagine it probably should be answered by Attorney Bellis. How many of those 300 that were approved were filled? Because the number that is given by Attorney Bellis at different time is 168 units left and 44. So, you know, maybe if you could find out that June 20th of 89 amendment, because it's not in our record. We don't have that. That was my question to Mr. Sulkus. Thank you, Mr. Quish.
Yes, David, do you have an answer?
I'm not sure how to answer that other than if Mr. Bellis wants to give some numbers, but again, this is the final phase of a project that had this board's approval for a significantly greater number than 44 to be in this phase. So however they ultimately got down to this number doesn't make really a difference to us. The fact that they're making a change from what was previously approved at a higher number, that's what makes a difference to this board, because they're making that change, even though it's less of an impact in terms of density, they still have to bring it to you, which is why they're here.
Would you like, can you offer some clarity to Mr. Sadi's question?
Thank you. Please, Attorney Bellis.
Yes, I agree with Mr. Sulkus, but to answer your question, 204 units have been built. If you include the 44 that we are requesting, The total amount will be 248. Your prior approval allowed 300. So that's what we're talking about, the difference.
Thank you at this point.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Yes, Ethan?
I have a question for Mr. Salkis. Can we approve this plan subject to the association addressing the erosion issues along the banks? In other words, make this contingent?
The only issue I would have with that is based on the city engineer's report. He made a recommendation that it should, I use his words in my report, and that was, it was noted by the city engineer, and he suggested that it be addressed. Is erosion on someone's property part of, that has an application somewhere else on the property? Does that affect it? That's a good question. I don't know that I can answer that question, to be honest.
Attorney Bellis, can you answer that question? That may be a legal question.
Yeah, under a special permit, you are allowed to put conditions. I think you know that. But under this particular, to answer your question specifically, we are applying for the construction of 44 units. The association knows that they have this issue with the bulkhead, and they're going to address it as an association. So I don't think it's appropriate to make it a condition of approval, is what I'm trying to say.
But it seems like the association seems like they can't agree on anything. So how do I know they're going to be able to come to an agreement on how to remediate this erosion?
I understand you heard a lot of things. I understand condominium law, and condominium law is that the unit owners elect a board of directors, and then the board of directors vote and have the authority to enter into contracts and so on and so forth. Just like we elect congressmen or state reps, not all the people agree with those state reps or those congressmen all the time, but under our process, that's how it works. They're elected, so they do have the authority. In this case, the board of directors have the authority, and they've made that authority abundantly clear that they are in favor of this. So I know you heard a lot of information from, but that's America. I mean, that's how democracy works, right? It's not Russia.
Yeah. I mean,
Are there any other questions or comments from the board? Mr. Castagnoli.
Yeah, what I was going to say is the erosion problem or issue, is an issue of maintenance. And we have many properties around the city that aren't properly maintained. We have many properties along the water that have various types of erosion issues. And those of you who have been in town long enough could probably remember not too long ago, some houses up in Morningside that, had to be demolished because they were going to tumble down a cliff. But we couldn't, as the city, make them fix their erosion. Ultimately, the property owners did something because it was in their interest. It's a maintenance issue. So I would be concerned if it were made a condition of approval that they address their maintenance issue.
So what I'm hearing is because that's on private property, that's a problem for the owner, and we have no jurisdiction. Is that correct?
I don't think we have jurisdiction.
Well, not us, not this board, but
Right.
CAM, say.
Right. If it was in some way adversely affecting the Housatonic, something below the mean high tide line, then that's state jurisdiction. The state has obviously been here. They, DEP has been, part of the process. If the state hasn't given any orders to them, to the association to remedy this at this time, I don't see how we could.
But if a board member believes, David, that this project will have an adverse impact on the erosion along the coast, why could I not make the project contingent on addressing this erosion at the same time?
There's a report, I think it was, I'll give you the number.
I'm sorry. We have a question from the board.
Oh,
Yep, thank you.
Well, at that point, I would just not make it a contingent, just you would vote against the motion or whatever motion was made. For us to make it contingent, it's like saying, I mean, unfortunately, they're the property owners and they own that property and that is their responsibility. It's just like, I live on the beach. I'm responsible for my seawall, you know, if it erodes away. So I'm not, again, I understand this is very much turned into, unfortunately, you know, the dispute amongst the condo owners, but we're not privy. We're here, we're charged with what's before us as an application for planning and zoning.
My question was not answered by Mr. Sulkis.
Please repeat your question.
If I believe, or if a board member believes that the project that is sought to be completed would adversely impact coastal erosion that's already been acknowledged to exist by the city engineer, why could I not make the project contingent on addressing that very problem that could be adversely impacted?
Well, you could make any motion you want, whether it's voted affirmatively by the board. If they agreed with you, then that would validate the thought. But if it may very well be that you didn't get a second or you didn't win the vote. But it's definitely your right to do it.
Because we make conditions on all the time. We put conditions on our applications
We do,
all the time.
and it's up to you. If you feel strongly about it, you're welcome to have it, you know, presenting your way. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Yep.
David, question for you. You told us this is zoning compliant, as far as we're concerned. What are we voting on then?
Well, the way the ordinance is set up, an applicant has to submit to you that they meet the requirements of the zoning regulations and that it's zoning compliant. When you approve an application, you're validating that submission. So if an applicant is bringing to you something that's not zoning compliant, well, that would be the basis of for a denial.
And you're telling us this is zoning compliant?
I'm telling you that this is substantially zoning compliant.
I'm just curious, if this gets approved, they build the 44, can they put in an application for the other 52 2 years down the road, or no? What null by?
That's to David, right?
You know, people can put in applications. You know, there's nothing to prevent people from putting in an application. What this applicant is telling you is this would be their last application. They could very well, in the future, say, you know, on second thought, although we put in these 44, you know, we'd like to add something here or something there. And if they can do it in a zoning compliant manner, they can make that application. You as the board, based on the record that has been presented during these hearings, could go, you know, we were told that, you know, this was the last phase. All the documents say it's the last phase. You continuously over time have lowered the number, and now you want to do something else. Chances are they're not going to come back because of the way they're laying this out. If you looked at the earlier development proposals, they were far more dense and they were all in the same location. So, but again, you know, you can engineer things, and if they wanted to come in and give something that was attempted to be zoning compliant, it would be up to the board to determine whether or not they could have it.
But that could be made a condition of approval in the motion, that they stipulate to the maximum of 44 units.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've represented that, but yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
It's been
sure.
represented, they can stipulate it.
Yeah.
I have another question for you, though. It's kind of a two-part question. We've had some talk about potential hazardous chemicals on the site, and we also have in our purview the ability to ask for a third-party consultant expert to come in. Could we stipulate that the approval is based on, among whatever else, that there is a licensed, an LEP, licensed environmental professional that does an impact study which has to satisfy the Milford Health Department prior to a building permit being issued?
Again, all I can do is point you to the planning and zoning regulations. You are not the health department or the Milford Board of Health. If there are chemical issues on that site, and I believe that there are people living on that site now who were affected by that.
True. No foundations have been dug lately. So it is in our purview to consider health and safety issues in any kind of special permit. There is broader responsibility to the board than just zoning compliance. That was more of not a question, it was a statement. Yes, Brian.
Mr. Kush, if I could just make a comment. We have an applicant who has the authority to bring this application. We have an application that's zoning compliant. Why don't we express our opinions through a vote? Because I've just about had it with this. And it's always a sore spot when people come in, they make noise. Vote. You can express your opinions by your vote. You have an application, it's square on all points. You have an applicant who's authorized to make it. Let's stop screwing around and take a vote, please.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with that. I mean, we're getting so far afield here, and we're getting into things that we shouldn't be getting into here. Okay, there are other agencies, state agencies, city agencies that should be dealing with these issues, that do deal with these issues, and it's not us.
That's fine. Is there any other comments or questions from the board?
I'm prepared to make a motion.
Have we closed the public hearing, David?
I don't believe you have.
Okay, without objection, we'll close the public hearing. Without objection, the public hearing is closed. Without any further discussion, I'll hear a motion.
I move to approve as presented the petition of Stephen Bellis, Esquire, for a major amendment for a special permit to coastal area site plan review to construct expansion of Caswell Cove condominiums at map 40, block 300, parcels 100-3A through 100-3D, of which Caswell Cove Condominium Association, Inc. is the owner.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Yep, P10.
Yeah, that's absent any conditions. Is that accurate?
The motion would...
I have made no conditions to my motion.
There are no conditions in that motion. Without any, Mr. Sadi.
Thank you very much. I appreciate Mr. Collegian's motion, and I will be opposing this for the following reasons. I've listened to all the people speaking, and I agree fully that your voice to be heard as to what occurred internally at the condominium association is back at the condominium association. I don't find it zoning compliant, the application, for the following reasons. The issue of what I see is the 44 is a number that's appropriate, but I have listened to different speakers, most in opposition, but I also remember last week State Representative Smith showed up here. I have a various concern about the environmental condition of that property. And I think that that could have been a condition of the motion, but it's not been made, so therefore I'm going to be opposing the motion. The third reason that I look at this is the issue that it's really not clear, and the burden is upon the applicant, which was Mr. Bellis, who's representing him, how many we actually approved. And as that being said, this was granted in 1987 where there were substantial changes. So I just, for the record, want to indicate merely because a board previously has approved the project, we're looking at it individually and separately. So I would oppose this. If there was an amendment to the requirement of an additional environmental report, because I did mention in my last comments 2 weeks ago that the soil and erosion report, which cost $750, was 4 years ago, and I suggested they could have spent the money and be better prepared to answer questions that are causing some concern. That being said, I recognize the motion is where it is, but I would be opposing upon a vote. Thank you.
Any other comments on the motion?
Is it possible to put out a competing motion pending an environmental study?
If this motion fails to pass, then we would be looking for another motion.
Okay. Okay, one at a time.
But Joe, once there is a motion and a second, there is discussion until the board is through. So as soon as the board's through, we'll vote on the motion.
Okay. Gotcha.
If there's any other questions or comments on the motion, we'll hear them. If none, we'll call the roll. Seeing none, Meg, would you call the roll?
Ms. Austin?
With the motion.
Mr. Castagnoli?
Yes.
Mr. Hirsch?
With the motion.
Mr. Cater?
No for me.
Mr. Cater is against the motion. Mr. Collegian?
With the motion?
Mr. Moore?
With the motion.
Mr. Mortimer?
I'm against the motion.
Mr. Sadi?
Against the motion?
Mr. Zaharidis?
Against.
And Chairman Quish.
I'm against the motion.
It's a tie vote, so the motion fails.
Okay, so we could hear another motion, and anyone who would like to put a condition on the motion, however they see fit, may make it at this point.
Well, my concern is the environmental impact.
John, we'll have a motion, and then we can discuss that motion. Yeah.
Do you have a motion, John? No. So I make a motion.
No, go ahead.
To approve with the condition that I'll indicate subsequently, excuse me. Petition of Stephen Bellis Esquire for a major amendment to a special permit with coastal area site plan review to construct an expansion of Caswell Cove Condominium Association on map 40, block 300, parcels 100-3A through 100-3D, of which Caswell Cove Condominium Association, Inc. is the owner. The special condition that I would be proposing for this particular motion is that there be an independent environmental study to be funded by the applicants, and if there is no environmental problems, then it should be passed.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
I second it.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion on the motion? John. He done.
He wanted to speak. For clarification purposes, Mr. Sadi, what do you mean by environmental?
We'll find in our packages that they had hired an environmental expert. They called the soil and erosion report. That's found at pages they're pages 18 of 20, so that's what I'm talking about. It's called the Wetlands, Water Sources, and Soil Report. So that'd be an environmental study done by somebody of a similar nature.
So do we want to identify licensed environmental professional, LEP, to do that report?
If the chair is suggesting that as an amendment, I take that as an appropriate amendment.
Would you add that to your second, John?
I would, yes.
Okay. So that language would just show that it would be a licensed environmental professional.
So just for clarification, the report that's being referred to was done for the Inland Wetlands Commission. It was a soils report to determine what are considered wetland soils versus non-wetland soils. So if you're asking for another report on what's wetland soils and not wetland soils.
No, I think that was I think he misspoke. I'll let him clarify.
Okay.
I was talking about any environmental issues that would be toxic materials that were found there. There's a report about the growth of dangerous plants, and like anything that would be dangerous to the people that are living in that particular area would be my concern. So it's the issue of the toxicity of the soil, any of the plantings that are there, anything like that.
Yep.
My question on that motion is, what would be the benchmark or what would be considered a fail upon that environmental review?
We could possibly make it maybe the city engineer's approval of the, no, not that. If it's a health concern, who?
Again, the issues at Caswell Cove are well documented and are, I believe, have been tracked and monitored by both our health department and the state. So that's an ongoing condition of the site. So if people haven't been evacuated from Caswell Cove and prevented from living there,
Yeah, David, I think the concern is that the construction activity that could cause a health issue. So if I can speak for Mr. Sadi only partially to see if he agrees with me, if we don't have anybody in the city that we can make responsible to review a licensed environmental professional's environmental impact study, then we can have it come back to this board and we can make the determination. If that would be a clarification of his motion, and if John acquiesced to that as a second, that could be a motion.
Okay, just for the record, because if we're going to court, this board does not have any expertise in public health or the evaluation of any environmental reports that may or may not have an adverse impact on people. So please keep that in mind.
Well, if I might, Mr. Sulkus, I agree, but the applicant has already provided us with reports. We routinely receive reports and make decisions. And the issue becomes, is it zoning compliant? And I agree that you have indicated that it is, but we don't have to accept your opinion. And you actually indicated it's substantially zoning compliant. So I suggested, and we had this hearing 2 weeks ago, we can ask for a traffic study. I suggest we could ask for an environmental study. I didn't do a specific motion that way, but I moved that it be approved. So I think we have the authority to do so, and we have the ability to make a reasoned decision as a member of the board that was given powers by the state of Connecticut and elected by the citizens of the city of Milford.
Do you agree with the language I used to clarify?
I do, and I would ask that that be used, and to be a second by Mr. Mortimer. That's fine.
Yes, I would agree also.
Okay, is there further discussion?
I would really appreciate a restatement of the motion, please.
You want me to do it?
Certainly. Restatement of the motion is I move to approve with the following condition, which I'll address in a moment. The petition of Stephen Bellis Esquire for a major amendment to a special permit with coastal area site plan review to construct an expansion of Caswell condominiums, Caswell Cove condominiums at MAT 40, Block 300, parcels 100-3A through 100-3D, of which Caswell Cove Condominium Associations, Inc. is the owner. The special condition would be examination of the property in question by a licensed environmental engineer, licensed environmental professional for environmental impact statement study.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a
second.
second. Without any further discussion, we'll call
Mr.
a
Chairman,
roll.
I just think that the motion gets us into an area that we shouldn't be dealing with. The state and city agencies should be dealing with this, and they are dealing with it, and we should not be getting into this. I mean, he's going to issue a report. We don't really have the expertise to even, deal with a report such as this.
Yeah, I respectfully disagree. I think we get reports all the time, and we
Yeah,
use our best
I know.
effort to understand them.
I think we're just looking for an expert opinion, and that's what we're going for here. And
Eton.
All right, so let's say hypothetically you approve this motion as stated by Mr. Sadi. What's the LEP report going to say that's going to change anything or cause us to do anything different?
If in fact they looked at the soil and they looked at the planned construction, they said that disturbing the soil is going to create a hazardous circumstance or situation, then we would look at that and we would address it as a board.
How would we be able to address it by the board, though, if we've already approved the plan with the motion to approve?
It's approved conditionally on our accepting the environmental impact study as having no adverse effect on the environment.
So we would decide as a board what constitutes an adverse impact?
I think it would be the licensed environmental professional who does an environmental impact study, and their opinions based on their expertise will inform us on whether we agree or disagree with the potential negative impact of the construction and the site work.
Mr. Chairman, now we're getting the environmental study to look at the construction process and what impact the construction process will have on this project?
Exactly. You stated it perfectly.
So we're not even concerned with what's there now. We're going to be concerned with what's going to happen during construction?
That is the motion.
Oh, my God.
Is there any further laughing at the motion? Okay, would you please call the roll, Mike?
Ms. Austin.
Against the motion.
Mr. Castagnoli. You are against the motion, sir. Mr. Hirsch.
Against the motion.
Mr. Cater.
With the motion.
Mr. Collegian.
Against the motion.
Mr. Moore.
Against the motion.
Mr. Mortimer.
I'm with the motion.
Mr. Stadi.
With the motion.
Mr. Zaharidis.
With the motion.
Chairman Quish.
I am with the motion.
Once again, the motion has failed in a tie vote.
Okay, we have an open floor. I'd hear a motion.
Mr. Chairman, can we table this? Since we can't pass a motion, we can't make a motion anymore?
I don't think I feel that there's political will to table it. I think we got to make our decision.
Well, we should.
Okay.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, but if we can't?
Can we make a motion? Nothing gets people to agree than making it painful for them. So why can't we do a motion where we put a financial pressure on them to come to a resolution on their own?
I didn't understand that.
In other words, phrasing or framing a motion in a particular way to make it economically advantageous for them to come to their own agreement decision on their own project.
So you're saying having them pay for the study is basically what you're saying is have them pay for
No, I think make them pay for the erosion. What if we make them pay to fix the erosion along the river?
Want to speak to that? I mean,
I think we're on two totally different subjects here, and the erosion versus the soil versus contamination and that type of thing. So we're on two different topics here. So we need to, if somebody wants to put forth the motion, that's what we need to do.
Mr. Chairman, can I reiterate, bring back Mr. Collegian's motion?
You can make your own motion, Joe.
Okay. I'd like to move to approve as presented the petition of Stephen Bellis Esquire for a major amendment to a special permit with coastal area site plan review to construct an expansion of Caswell Cove condominiums at MAP 40, Block 300, parcels 100-3A through 100-3D, of which Caswell Cove Condominium Association, Inc. is the owner.
I second.
We have a motion. Is that Carl?
Yes.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Meg, if we'd call the roll.
Ms. Austin.
With the motion.
Mr. Castagnoli.
With the motion.
Mr. Hirsch.
With the motion.
Mr. Cater.
Against the motion.
Mr. Collegian.
With the motion.
Mr. Moore.
With the motion.
Mr. Mortimer.
Against the motion.
Mr. Sadi.
Against the motion.
Mr. Zaharidis.
Against.
Chairman Quish.
I'm against the motion.
A tie vote again, so it fails.
So, David, could you inform us what happens if we do this 15 more times and we don't have it?
If there's no motion to approve, then it's a fail. So the application wouldn't, I mean, you'll have to have a motion. I mean, the motions keep, if the motions keep failing, they're failed motions, then you don't have an approved application. Just to help you out, you do have until July 14th, so you can do this every week up till July 14th to make a decision.
Mr. Chairman, I just was going over our regulations here, and what I'm basing this on is the public health, 7.1.3.7. Does that actually apply here? What it says is we need to, blah, 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 protect the property from adverse air, water, or land pollution and preserve and enhance the environmental quality of the surrounding neighborhood and that of the city. So I'm kind of looking at that and saying, well, there's a possibility here. So am I off base with that? I mean, what is?
No, I perfectly agree. Mr. Sulkus, Brian.
Yeah, is my reading of that section correct?
I'll make a motion that we table this application to the next hearing.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, call the roll, please, Meg.
Ms. Austin.
With the motion.
Mr. Castagnoli. Mr. Hirsch.
With the motion.
Mr. Cater.
With the motion.
Mr. Collegian.
With the motion.
Mr. Moore.
With the motion.
Mr. Mortimer.
With?
Mr. Sadi.
With the motion.
Mr. Zaharidis.
With the motion.
Chairman Quish.
I'm with the motion. David, can we get a determination from the city attorney on how far off we've been going or where we can go to try to... There are legitimate concerns of the board and legitimate concerns of the neighbors and public. And if we can and are allowed to address them, I'd like us to be able to do that. So if you would get us...
Absolutely.
And we can laugh about it later.
Yep, absolutely. No problem. We'll get that.
Thank you very much. We'll see you.
Okay, next order of business is old business. We don't have any. Next is liaison reports.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be brief. South Central Council of the Governments had a meeting last Thursday. We had nothing that involved Milford, nothing that was of relevance to our board proceedings here nor in the future.
Okay, we have subcommittee reports. We have ongoing meetings for Plan of Conservation and Development and Regulations Subcommittee, and those are on the website. Next order of business is approval of minutes of 4/5/2022. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the minutes.
Second? Third? Okay, second by Jim Cater. Without objection, they're approved. Chair's report, I have none. Staff report.
None this evening.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
Second.